What's up, sons and daughters? It is Sam Jesse, and I am back with Tech Sideline baseball beat reporter, writer, the guy who covers baseball probably better than anybody at Virginia Tech, Chris Hirons. Chris, welcome back. The HokieBall show, March 1st, 2023. This is March, but we're not talking college basketball. We're talking college baseball as the Hokies are off to a hot 6-2 start. Previously, D1 Baseball came out with their updated national rankings. The Hokies, number 11 in the country. That's up 3 spots from their preseason ranking of number 14. Quick plug for everything in the Section 5 Podcasting Network. We have some awesome baseball coverage that's going to continue to happen this spring. Locks of Saturday, Queens of the Castle, Upper 90, all that stuff. Be sure to hit it up. Some great stuff coming at you this spring and summer. Chris, welcome back on the show, dude.
Yeah, good to be back.
I mean, we'll just get right into it. This is how we'll do these shows coming up. We'll go back and look at everything that happened since we last talked. We'll do it probably every 2 weeks while we're doing the non-conference season. We'll look at each game real quick. Then we will talk about 3 things that we loved, something that we think needs to improve, and we'll give you a player of the week, or in this case, weeks. And then we'll also look forward to the games coming up for the Hokies. So pretty simple stuff, but it should be a lot of fun because the Hokies played pretty darn well, although it didn't start great for the Hokies, playing down against a really good College of Charleston team. Game 1, 5-2 loss. Ty Good is very good for College of Charleston. Definitely a guy who will be picked in the MLB draft. He pitched 5 innings, only gave up 1 hit, recorded 6 strikeouts. Hokies had a lead in that game, but then a Kyrie Miller grand slam in the bottom of the 6th. Just a little too much for the Hokies. They lose the opener 5-2, but game 2 was a totally different story. The Hokies, a 12-3 win over the Cougars in that one. Jack Hurley, inside the park, 2 RBI home run. Technically, it was a triple that advanced on an error, but we're going to give him the inside the park home run, right?
Yeah, I mean, well, I was there, I was watching it, and, you could make the case for an error, but I don't know. On a play like that, it looked like a Little League home run.
Just give it. It's still a little, regardless of the error, it's still a Little League home run.
It is, yeah.
Hokies had 9 runs in the 7th and 8th inning. Henry Weicker came on and threw absolute gas in this game. 4 1/3 innings pitched, 3 hits, 1 walk, 10 Ks for the bullpen arm. Hokies again win that one 12-3. And then in game 3, much of the same, 15-2 win for the Hokies. Again, they were down early in this one, but a couple of sac flies by Chris Cannizzaro and Carson DiMartini in the 3rd gave the Hokies the lead. Garrett Mitchell. Is it Michelle? I've heard it multiple ways on broadcast. I believe it's Michelle.
It's Michelle.
Okay, that sounds a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
Doubled in the 4th to start a big 4th inning. And I think a story of that series was College of Charleston, brand spanking new field, nice facilities they've got. They put in a turf field, a lot of pros, a lot of cons. It looked like College of Charleston players had never played on a turf field before. They had 6 errors in the game on Sunday, 10 errors in the series. Well, do you think that actually played a part in this? Because at least on the broadcast, they talked about these guys don't look super comfortable.
Yeah, no, it definitely did. I was talking with their with College of Charleston's sports information director, and he said it was their first series that they had gotten to play on the brand new field. You could see like every time the ball like skidded across the turf, there was sand that bounced up. Like it really looked like Charleston. Like it was the first time like they had played on turf. Obviously, it was the first time at that stadium, but I mean, Tech looked right at home since English Field is on turf. But yeah, I mean, the defense, I mean, it's just for Charleston, it wasn't good. I mean, but for Tech on the flip side, though, I mean, the defense that series, and especially on Sunday, was great. Carson DiMartini, man, I mean, he's an elite third baseman, and he made that known against that weekend playing on the turf. Didn't have any trouble feeling the ball coming up on on something slow or picking the ball out of the dirt on a short hop. But like, Tech just looked right at home, and College of Charleston, like it just, that field definitely gave them some issues. I don't know how much practice they got on before. I had heard that maybe like, how was it phrased to me? It was phrased that like it was finished like just before the season started. So I think that's part of it too.
I think on the broadcast they said they were practicing for a couple weeks beforehand on a travel ball field that was turf in the
that's
area.
what it was.
And it also was kind of wet conditions there for a little bit. So slick turf and baseball doesn't really match. But Hokies win that one comfortably in those last two games. Definitely felt good to get a lot of runs in the first series. Pitching in game 3, I thought was really good. Anthony Arguelles, 4 innings pitched, 4 hits, 6 Ks. He looks like, I was a little worried that he maybe wouldn't have the stamina of a starting pitching quite yet. I think he's looked pretty good. We'll get into some other of his starts. His stuff is pretty good. Grant Umberger, 3 innings, gave up no earned runs. Griffin Steig, a guy who they think can really help them early on in his career, 2 innings, only 1 earned run. Thoughts on the College of Charleston series?
I thought
that's a good team.
Yeah, so I thought it went exactly the way it was going to go. I thought, Tech had a chance to sweep, but that is a very, very good opponent. You're on the bus Thursday morning, Thursday afternoon. You get in Thursday evening, you're driving down six hours down there for Tech. And you came out a little flat on Friday, but I mean, I thought that was expected. Ty Good, like you said, he looks very, very good on the mound. So, I mean, I wasn't super surprised that they kind of came out a little flat offensively on Friday. I mean, they were a grand slam away from winning that game. Kieran Higgins left the slider up in the zone. I mean, that stuff just happens. That's baseball. But game 2, game 3, Tech really kind of started to piece it together. They got a lot of help from Charleston's, pretty bad defense, and the slick turf that they had. But I thought it was a very positive series. The team, learned how to lose together, and then they also learned how to win together.
Yeah, and that's look, it's never too early to start thinking about tournament resume. And that's a College of Charleston team that is widely expected to win the CAA this year, the Colonial Athletic Association. So when you go up against a team like that, who is returning a lot of their production, they're returning 2 arms that will probably get drafted, you feel really good about that win. And you don't have a ton of opportunities to get important non-conference wins in college baseball. Like, they don't come very often. So the opportunity to win 2 out of 3 on the road against a team that's probably going to win their conference, that's a really positive weekend for the Hokies. The Hokies came home and played what seems to be their annual game against East Tennessee State. 15-5 win. Kieran Higgins got the start, was almost perfect, had 1 walk in there. He was really good. Is he the 4th starter of this team?
No, he's not. He's going to come out of the bullpen. So Christian Worley was supposed to throw that day. I asked Chef about it, I guess, after the game. And he said that Worley that day was just feeling like a little tender on the back of his bicep, if that makes sense. He said he's close to 100. He was close to 100% that day, but he's not going to run anyone out there, especially this early in the season. It was a little chilly that day. So it wasn't worth running the risk of injuring Worley further. So that's why they went with Kieran Higgins, who he started at Shippensburg up in Pennsylvania, or Maryland is where Shippensburg is. He started there at the D2 level a few times. And then he transitioned to the bullpen, not last summer, but the summer before. And that's where, he's been for Tech.
Yeah. And I think it was just a good day for the Hokies. Get a bullpen day in there, score 15 runs, home opener. You can't ask for more than that, really. I think going forward for the Hokies, those bullpen days in the next couple of weeks will be really important to see, all right, these are the guys we can really rely on. These are the guys who are feeling themselves, because they play Miami here pretty soon. right? And you want to know exactly who your guys are and what they can do going into that. So I like having those bullpen days like that. But Hokies 15-5 win over the Buccaneers. Now the Hokies, another home series against the Bryant Bulldogs, a historically very, very good Bryant program. They're in a new conference this year. And again, I believe they're in the New England Conference this year. NEC, or they left the NEC to join the American East. That's what it was. So it's basically them and UMass Lowell, who the Hokies will play coming up here as the favorites to win that conference. So again, a 2-1 series win against Bryant, potentially another win against a team in the tournament. 7-3 loss to start game one. Coleman Pickard for Bryant was unreal. 12 Ks in 5 innings pitched. You were there. You saw it. Hokies just kind of had trouble with them.
Yeah. I mean, it's not that they totally struggled against them. Like they hit them. They had a few doubles. It's just, he was able to dot up his curveball so well and his slider so well. He couldn't miss a spot. And that's really what kind of, led to Tech's struggles. I was talking to a few players. They said they were sitting on fastballs, and then all of a sudden it'd be a 1-1 count. They'd be sitting on a fastball, and then Coleman Pickard would drop a curveball in there. So, I mean, it was a guy who kind of, pitched against a normal tendency when it comes to pitching. But I mean, you're just going to have days like those. I mean, it's baseball. Like I saw a ton of people on Twitter, be saying, how in the world are you using a school called named Bryant? I've never heard of this school, but that's baseball. Like you're going to lose these games. You're going to face some guy who you never heard of, and he's going to dot you up for, 12 strikeouts in 5 innings.
Yeah. And if you've never heard of Bryant, you probably don't follow college baseball very closely. They've won their conference like 10 out of the last 11 years or something. I think this series and the College of Charleston series, very similar to what the Hokies had with Wright State, where to start last year, where you're playing a team that is pretty good, but a mid-major, low major, you should beat them. And you maybe don't play your best for the first series, but then you turn it on. And who knows, like last year, the Hokies ended up playing Wright State in the regional. So we'll see about that. 7-3 loss for the first game. Griffin Green pitched okay. I think a little unfortunate for Green that the 2 losses have come in his starts, but maybe haven't seen his best pitching yet.
I think he would agree with that. I think the box score doesn't. He was better than what the box score says. He got a little unlucky in the second inning. There was some bad defense there. The first inning he gave it the 2 runs. I think those are on him. And the second inning, I think that was where kind of the defense let that game kind of get away. And then the 6th inning, he threw 5+. He was throwing well. He settled in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th pretty well through 3 straight shutout innings. And he got out. He walked the first batter of the 6th, hit the next guy, and Christian Worley almost worked out of the jam with 2 outs, but then yielded a double. Just kind of one of those days for Tech.
Yeah, and those days will happen. And I think, looking at back to the first game against College of Charleston, where you basically lose on a grand slam, this game, the Hokies get 9 hits, only results in 3 runs. Bryant gets 7 hits, results in 7 runs. Something early on for the Hokies is they're having a tendency for very little contact on the other side to create maximum damage almost. And that's baseball. Like that happens, right? But you really need to limit the free bases, the walks, errors, the hit by pitch, because those add up really quickly. And even if you have a really good pitching performance, you can end up yielding a lot of runs. So something early, I think the Hokies would like to, I guess, Chef is really big on free bases. So I'm sure they've heard a lot about that, just cleaning things up a little bit there. Game 2, 4-1 win. Garrick Ebel and Eddie Eisert were solo shots in the 3rd. It was good to see those 2 guys get some power hits, especially Garrick Ebel. I thought felt really felt really good for him to do something good at the plate. That's kind of where he's needed to improve a little bit. So great to see him hit a dinger. Drew Hackenberg was Drew Hackenberg, 7 innings pitched, 10 Ks, no earned runs. Henry Weicker came in and did much of the same, 2 innings pitched, 1 hit, 3 Ks, no earned runs. Probably the best pitching duo performance we've seen from the Hokies this year. Can't really ask for much better. And really exciting that Henry Weicker looks to be the guy out of the pen. Like, he's looked virtually unhittable.
Yeah, I mean, Weicker, that the Saturday Charleston game, I mean, he was great. I mean, it was just one strikeout after another. And then, he turns around and to do it a week later, strike out 3 in 2 innings, like that looked great. But I mean, Drew Hackenberg on Saturday, I mean, he was set a career high in strikeouts with 10. I thought it was interesting. A little note that I tweeted post game. That was the debut of PitchCom for Virginia Tech. It was the first time they ever used something like that. And for those of you that don't know, we'll get into it later. It's a wristband that's worn by the pitcher and the catcher, obviously, to know which pitch is coming, instead of doing the radio, which Tech used to do to relay the signs to the catcher. But even some of the infielders were wearing the pitch comm, so they knew which pitch was coming and where to position themselves when there were runners on base or runners not on base, all that stuff.
This is a question because I don't know. You can do pretty much almost whatever you want to do in order to get the pitches in now. You can have a coach call it from the dugout. You can do pitch comm. You can still use the old-fashioned signs. I've seen Hokies have used signs this season, but they've also gone to pitch comm. Are they just kind of testing the waters with stuff?
So they ran into the pace of play issue a few times in Charleston when they were pitching the new action clock. Because pitching coach Ryan Fecto would talk into the walkie-talkie. It would get relayed to Garrick Ebel or Brody Donay's ear, and then he would do the signs. Now to kind of fix that pace of play issue, Tech saw that College of Charleston. I don't know why it's so hard to pronounce today. They were using that during that series, and they decided on Saturday, we're gonna let's try pitch comm. Let's see how this works. Drew Hackenberg loved it. Garrick Ebel, he liked it, is what he said. Ebel joked after the game and said, he accidentally put down a few signs just out of habit, and then they ended up using it on Sunday, and then they used it last night against Radford. So I think it's something that Tech, I think they'll use in the future. I don't know if every pitcher will use it, because Griffin Green has yet to. From what I understand, but I think it's something that Tech will probably use on a day in, day out basis now.
Yeah, I find that interesting with baseball, is just kind of the dynamic of how to get signs in, how to relay that information quickly, because that's really the strategy part of the game that makes it so unique. And I'm old school. I would love the catcher just sitting back there calling the pitches. That's more of a major league thing, but hey, if it works, it works. And if you get 10 strikeouts, I think you're going to do it the next start as well. So
yeah, just going back to the whole old fashioned baseball with the signs, it does look a little weird when you're watching on TV, when the pitcher's looking down at his wrists instead of looking in for the sign. That's just something I noticed. It's a little funny.
Well, Hokies didn't have much issue in game 3 either. 15-8 wins. Actually, I take that back. There were some issues in the 15-8. First off, giving up 8 runs, not a great number to give up. Some issues with the battery early. Anthony Arguelles, again, I thought had good stuff. Box score might have been a little unkind to him. They had a run on a throwing error by Dene where he was throwing down to third, and then a wild pitch by Arguelles. Those were a couple runs there for Bryant. I think that'll work itself out as the season goes on, but you don't really want battery errors. That sucks. So you want to clean that up a bit. Although when you have a 7-run second inning, that kind of covers up for a lot of issues. Eduardo Malinowski with a big double to start that one, and then yet another inside the park home run. This one a true inside the park home run for Dene. Let's talk about Dene Abe. He's a freshman catcher, 6'5", 6'6". He's a really big guy.
Yeah.
What can he bring to this team? Because physically, he's a menace.
I mean, he's a big guy. I mean, I've been in the room with both Elizabeth Kitley and Brody Done, not at the same time, but I think he's taller than Elizabeth Kitley, who's 6'6". Um, I think he's 6'7". He looks every bit of 6'7", but he's a big guy. And when he swings, it doesn't even look like he's swinging that hard, but his average exit velocity usually is anywhere from 98 to like 108 miles an hour. Like it is, I don't know how he does it. It doesn't even look like he's swinging that hard. It's truly just a wonder to me how he swings that hard. Even on the inside the park home run, I think that exit velocity was like 114 miles an hour on a 40-degree launch angle, which on a 40-degree launch angle, usually that's a normal flyout. But that ball, I watched and I was like, oh, that's just a normal flyout to center field, and that ball just kept carrying and carrying and carrying, and then ends up bouncing right in front of the wall. I think he's going to be one of your power bats. I don't know if he's going to stick at catcher. Obviously, we've seen a little bit of defensive struggles, but you can also kind of expect that for a freshman catcher who 6'6". Just kind of getting his feet wet in college baseball. So I wouldn't say the defensive struggles are anything to worry about a lot yet. Maybe in a few years, if he's still behind the plate and he still has a few throwing errors, but I think he's going to be a pretty big bat in Tech's lineup for at least the next 3 years.
Yeah, very good to hear. Again, he's a really exciting prospect. Has a little bit of ways to go defensively, but having Gary Gable, a veteran back there that you can rely on, is also really nice. Thoughts on this series? Again, like I said, potentially a series win against the tournament team. Between Bryant and UMass Lowell, who the Hokies will play, if they win both of those series and the College of Charleston series, you feel pretty good about having 2 series wins against teams in the field.
Yeah, and you can even throw in Charlotte.
Yeah, of course. We'll talk about Charlotte.
Yeah, I mean they'll be a tournament team, but I mean you have Bryant, who will, I don't know if I'd say probably, but has a solid chance at making the NCAA tournament.
Mm-hmm.
I thought this weekend went as much the same as it did with the College of Charleston. I was like, I don't know if Tech will sweep, but they'll definitely take 2 out of 3. And you'll have games like Friday where the bats just don't come alive. That stuff happens, but and I just think maybe as a baseball player, it's a little sweeter to win the series when you're kind of playing from behind on Saturday and Sunday. You drop that Friday game, but it's sweeter to win the series that way, kind of just take the momentum out of them. And another thing I'll say about Bryant is that, yeah, okay, they came in 0-3 against High Point, who's, they're not going to be very good this season, but Bryant was in all 3 of those games. They ended up getting walked off on a grand slam on the Friday night game, their opener. And then the Saturday and Sunday, I forget those final scores, but those were also close games. So they weren't a true 0-3 team coming in, and they're not a true 1-5 team going out. I'll just put that there with Bryant.
Yeah, and again, reminds me a lot of the Wright State series, where Wright State, I think they lost on like multiple walk-offs to Georgia Tech and Oklahoma State before they ended up playing the Hokies. So a good series win, you'll take it, and you move on to the Sharkies Classic, the most illustrious rivalry in the New River Valley. The Hokies 17-2 winners over Radford. Shout out to my longtime friend and amazing baseball broadcaster, Evan Hughes, for somehow solo calling a 17-2 baseball game by himself and doing a good job. Kudos to you, Evan. You're the best in the business, man. I mean, 17-2 basically tells you what you need to know about this game, right?
Yes and no. I mean, it tells you that Tech's offense was great, right? You come to expect that with Radford, who was picked last in the Big South. But you also got these debuts from Nick Finarelli, Jacob Exum, Luke Jackman, and then all 3 of those on the bump. And then you had Carter Newman's collegiate debut. He hits a home run in the 8th. And then Warren Holzheimer, a sophomore infielder, he ends up he collects his first career hit. I thought that you saw a lot of good, even though the score was 17-2, and you're thinking the game was over by the fourth inning, but it allowed for Jacob Exum, a freshman who's probably not going to pitch a lot this year, and Luke Jackman, who redshirted last year, didn't play. It allowed them to kind of get some game action. They practice just as hard as everyone else. They're on the team. They're going to everything that everyone else is, but they're just not playing. I thought it was good to see them get in the game. Nick Fernarelli, though, he should be an arm that Tech might use more midweeks. He started yesterday. He threw 14 pitches. 9 of them were strikes. Struck out the 2 of the first 4 hitters he faced. Or 2 of the 5 hitters he faced. I take that back. But he looked good. He got the start instead of Ryan Kennedy, who's a freshman from Northern Virginia, who's supposed to be the midweek guy. Chef said that Kennedy's dealing with an elbow issue right now. It's nothing like super concerning. It's just more of, he's not going to run a guy out there who's not 100%.
I made an error. I forgot maybe the most important bullet point of the Bryant series. Chris Canizaro hit for the cycle with 2 home runs. I haven't. We'll talk about that later. We talk about that later, but yeah, I mean, just a crazy, crazy day for the Bucknell transfer. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Also, we're talking about freshman pitchers. Tommy Shapansky struck out the side in the 9th. You literally cannot do better than that as a pitcher. So the Hokies freshman arms looks like they have a good core of guys that they brought in.
It does. Griffin Stieg. I've heard it's Stig. I'm not sure how that's pronounced. I'll ask him when I get the chance to talk to him. But he's looked pretty good in his first few outings. He pitched a scoreless 8th on Sunday. He pitched a scoreless 8 on Sunday, and then Shapansky followed that up. Stieg, I know Chef wants to use him on the weekends. Tech, with Shapansky, though, I think they want to use this year more as a developmental year, get him in games that are kind of blowouts. I mean, unless he kind of does his thing in blowouts and pitches really well. I think that's how Tech is kind of treating Shapansky, kind of like Tyler Dean, who, a very highly recruited guy, just hasn't put it all together yet, but they'll both be very, very good in years to come.
Yeah, really exciting stuff. Let's talk about 3 things that we loved from the first couple weeks. My first thing is kind of obvious. Hokies are averaging over 10 runs a game. There doesn't seem to be a huge drop off in the offense. And that's of yet. They haven't faced ACC pitching yet. But so far, the offense looks to be just as good as last year in terms of putting up runs.
Yeah. I mean, the offense, obviously they haven't faced, Miami or Florida State or any of those arms, but they've still hit some quality pitching. College of Charleston, they're no pushover. I mean, they were solid. And then Bryant also wasn't a pushover. Obviously, they didn't look that great against the Friday guy, but I thought, the bats came alive, and ETSU is supposed to be a pretty good team in the SoCon. None of the teams that Tech has faced are pushovers except maybe Radford.
I will say Radford looked not great.
Overall. Yeah, they got to go. They're playing NC State tonight now too. So
yeah, but they'll figure it out. They got a new coach. They'll figure it out.
Yeah, but I mean, even when you get to the Sunday games in the ACC, most teams don't have the pitching to stack up all 3 days. So that's just something to keep in mind once the ACC schedule gets going. It's just, yeah. I mean, the bats were just great.
Yep. Next thing that I really liked, bullpen depth. We talked about it in the preseason preview. It looks to be real solid depth. I think there's probably 4 or 5 guys that they can throw out there that they feel really, really good about. And that's a huge advantage because even some of the best college baseball teams don't have that bullpen depth. So, I mean, when you talk about guys like Weicker, Worley, um, if you can throw out Stieg out there, if you can, throw Kieran Higgins out there,
Brady
Kertner,
guy.
Brady Kertner looked good. So that's some really good arms out there.
Yeah, I mean, Brady Kertner this weekend and last weekend too against Charleston, he's looked in the innings he's thrown, he's looked great. His curveball is it's legit. It is pretty good. It's got really good break. And then he complements that pretty well with a fastball that looks more like a cutter. He calls it a fastball. The team calls it a fastball, but he throws it's more of a cutter. I think Kertner is a guy who will be one to take the next step. He hasn't seen the workload or the innings that Graham Fireved had, but I almost wonder that maybe he's the guy to kind of step up in that role. Matthew Seiberling, he's looked pretty good too, a lefty.
Great to see him back.
Yeah, especially after going through TOS. That's a tough surgery to go through. He was asked to get an out on, I think it was Friday and Sunday. He pitched to one batter, did his job as the lefty specialist. I mean, this bullpen, you can really mix and match the matchup super, super well. I don't know if there's a team that maybe they have better arms in the bullpen, but they don't have as much depth as Tech does coming back pitching wise this year.
Yep, agreed. My third thing that I loved, Drew Hackenberg looks like an all ACC pitcher. I know he's not playing Wake Forest or Rake Forest as they call it down here in North Carolina. He hasn't faced Miami, hasn't faced Carolina, but I mean the dude looks every bit of an MLB prospect as a pitcher. Very, very excited to see him. He did along with Griffin Green, tailed off a little bit towards the end of last year. And I think that was something going into this year. You're like, okay, did he just pitch out of his mind for a bit and he going to come down, or was that for real? That was for real. This guy's really, really good.
Yeah. I mean, Hackenberg, he looked like Vincent Hackenberg. He almost looked like it was the first time he completed 7 innings since the Friday Duke game he pitched at the end of last season.
And it looked, but it looked like an easy 7 innings. Like he wasn't, he threw 106 pitches or something.
Yeah.
But he didn't look to have a huge velo drop off or anything.
No, I mean, the TrackMan numbers obviously had fallen off. You get a little bit tired. He said he felt great at the end of the game. He said he wasn't tired or anything. He said he probably could have gone out and pitched the 8th, but Tech wanted to shut him down out of precaution to keep him fresh for deep in the season. Totally understandable.
Yep.
But the TrackMan numbers looked close to the same that they did at the beginning of the game. The only words I had, it just looked like vintage Hackenberg. Like he just looked great. A career high 10 strikeouts. The sinker was working. The changeup was working. Everything worked for Hackenberg, and I think he's definitely the guy that you saw for 90% of the year last year. The first 84 or so innings he threw.
He's a guy who, I think one of the new things in baseball is like pitching backwards, where you don't have to start fastball. You can kind of mix around your pitches. I think the way he's pitching right now, it looks like he can throw any pitch at any spot to any batter. It's almost like the batter's not even there and he's just warming up pitching. Like he looks to have really good command. He looks comfortable with everything. Again, the talent is in a few weeks here. It's about to get real. They're going to play some really good offenses, but so far he just looks so comfortable. I mean, really, really exciting stuff. Something that needs to improve. What do you think? What do you think? I mean, because it's kind of tough this early in the season, and considering some of the score lines we've seen.
So, I'll start. I think maybe the offense a little bit. I think that they've gotten. Obviously, they've put up more runs through 8 games this year than they did last year at this point. But and John Sheff will say the same thing. there are a few guys figuring some things out. Carson Jones is figuring his swing out, hit the grand slam last night. He's looked good in his last 2 games. Jack Hurley's not a guy who will slump. Like he won't go 0 for 18. He'll go 1 for 4 or 1 for 5 with a double. And that's kind of his slump. And Chef said that, Jack's starting to figure things out. Eduardo Malinowski took a few games to figure it out. Malinowski looks pretty good. He singled home a pair yesterday and then doubled home a pair the other day. He's starting to figure things out. And he said none of these guys are on the top of their offense except maybe Christian Martin, who's hitting 500 through his first few games. He sat yesterday. Chef said that he had kind of a hamstring issue. Again, nothing major. It's just out of precaution. But to me, I think the offense maybe needs to figure it out. But also, that's just baseball. Like last year's offense, obviously they had it figured out. There was protection everywhere in the lineup, even the 6, 7, 8 hole guys. Connor Hardigan and Lucas Donlin, who swapped at the DH and rotated through, they were good hitters and they were your weakest spot in the lineup. I thought that last year, like, you just had so much protection in the lineup, and this year, like, the bats are great. They're good again, but they're not. It's just not the same level it was last year.
Yeah, no, I think where we've seen a lot of production from the offense, we've also seen they've been very, very reliant on big innings.
Mhm.
And, those big innings happen when you just get to a guy and then they make another bullpen switch and that guy's not really ready to go. And then you get at that guy again and it snowballs from there. When they face some of these better pitching, staffs, when they face guys who can take ground ball singles and, all of a sudden it's out because the shortstop made a phenomenal play. Can you score 6, 7, 8 runs without having a 5-run inning? That's kind of every baseball team needs to be able to do that, but we haven't really seen the Hokies do that this year. They've really been a big inning team. So as the season goes on, we'll look at that. Personally, for me, I think I would like to see the Fridays be a little bit better. I understand it's just 2 games, and Griffin Green, like we talked to him, box score has probably been a little unkind to him, but you don't want to get in the habit of losing that first game. And Griffin Green's an experienced pitcher. He's a good pitcher. I think he can pitch better. I think the offense on Fridays has been a little sluggish. It seems like they don't have quite the spark that they have on the Saturday and Sunday games. So something to improve. Let's have a good performance on the Friday games. I don't have a little banner for this, but there are some new rules to college baseball. We talked about pitch com. College baseball loves making rule changes just in general. What should fans who maybe haven't watched a game yet expect when they do watch a game?
Yeah, so I'll start with the action clock. I think you get about 20 seconds in between pitches for an at-bat, which no one really likes. For who I've talked to, no one really likes it. David Bryant yesterday was the only one who's been like, I don't mind the pitch clock, only because he likes the faster pace of play. But a lot of the other hitters, a lot of the other pitchers I've talked to have said they're not fans of it. Carson DiMartini put it to me this way: if you're a casual fan of baseball and you don't like the extra 15 minutes, why are you watching? Like, which I understand, and I totally get that. Like, what's an extra 15 minutes really gonna do? So that's the new part, and that's why Tech had to adopt a pitch com, because it took too long to get the signs down. And there's been a little confusion in the rule, I guess, with the action clock. You can't step out of the batter's box is the new rule. And the problem in the Friday Charleston game was that you can still put, when you step into the box for the first time and you're starting your at bat, you're allowed to put your hand up to call time to get yourself ready so the pitcher doesn't quick pitch you. The problem, and I think that's why Ty Good settled into such a great groove, is that the home plate umpire wasn't allowing Tech hitters to call time. And not call time, but let themselves get ready to where Good was quick pitching them. And I think that was part of it too. So it's just the action clock is interesting, and it's why Tech has gone to pitch calm, just to speed up not speed up the pace of play, but get the signs there quicker, so you don't have an action clock violation.
Yeah, and I'm curious as to why college baseball felt they needed to make that change and follow MLB. MLB, look, you might not like it, but they needed it. As someone who watches a lot of baseball for work and as a Guardians fan, it can get pretty brutal. Like watch James Karinchak pitch for the Guardians and tell me that he doesn't need 45 seconds in between pitches. But I'm just curious as to why college baseball, because I never thought pace of play was an issue for baseball. I thought, if anything, the game was significantly faster than what you see at the pro levels.
Yeah, I wish I could answer that question. I don't know why. Even last year, like the games, they lasted 3 hours, anywhere between 2.5 to 3 hours. I don't think the pitch clock has been the action clock has made a significant difference, just because the games are still relatively the same, 2.5, 3 hours.
Yeah, when you score 17 runs, that kind of
yeah.
yeah. If we're gonna talk about pace of play, let's maybe bring in that rule. But overall, people will get used to it and then they won't notice it. I think that's what we're gonna see across baseball. Maybe not for some of the old heads for MLB, but for college baseball, I think guys are gonna adapt pretty quickly. Let's talk about the hammer.
Yeah, let's talk about the hammer. It's not controversial or anything, but so I'll give the quick story about what was told to me in the offseason, what Tech was going to do, and what Tech has actually done. So I reported in the middle of July. Actually, let's start in the Super Regional. Tech wasn't allowed to swing the hammer in the Super Regional because the on-site rep said that he took a meeting that they had, not in the wrong way, but that meeting was held because Drew Gilbert of Tennessee flicked off the pitcher in the regional. And so he took those on-field actions and understood that and took it to like apply it to the hammer, to where Tech couldn't swing the hammer on the field. So that's where really that all started. And then Tech began, the NCAA banned on-field props, which I reported in July, August-ish, somewhere in between there. And in that report, I said that Tech would be allowed to swing the hammer as many times as it wants in the like cutout portion of the dugout, if you know what I'm talking, like the open portion. So they're able to swing it there as many times as they want, but if they bring it 2 feet outside the dugout, they can only swing it once, and then they get a warning, and the next time it's an ejection. That's how dumb that rule is a discussion for another day. But so what was told to me over the offseason was that Tech was going to swing the hammer once, get the warning for the first home run of their series, and then use a bat. And so the bat, by some umpires, is considered a prop, but by some, it's not. The College of Charleston umpires considered the bat not a prop, that's why you saw Jack Hurley and Garrett Michelle swing the bat during the Charleston series. And then against ETSU, Tech they used the air hammer outside of the dugout because on Carson DiMartini's grand slam, which was the second of the game, because the umpires there interpreted the rule as that the bat was a prop. So flash forward to this weekend, Tech swings actually not even this week. Yeah, this weekend. So Tech did the air hammer on Saturday afternoon in their dugout because the ACC has now asked them to do the celebration inside the dugout from what I understand. So they did it with the air hammer, and then on Sunday they've started doing the hammer inside the dugout, and they did that yesterday too. So what they do is once the player crosses home plate and they go to the dugout, someone picks up the removable fence in the dugout, in the cutout of the dugout, so that there's no like injury concern, and Tech follows every rule that the NCAA has put into place. So that's the long story of what's going on with the hammer now, and I'm sure it'll change 3 or 4 different times before the end of the year.
It's ridiculous on so many levels, and we can basically trace it back to being Tennessee's fault. So yeah, blame Tennessee. But Tech does have that like really nice dugout extension almost, which is
Yeah.
part of the dugout. And I remember a couple years ago, it was, I forget which ACC series it was, but the umps were like, yeah, you can't use that. And Tech was like, we're sitting in our dugout. And the umps like made the coaches and on deck batters move away from that. They actually took the on deck batter, brought him onto the field of play to start swinging instead of being protected in the dugout portion. They just have no idea what the rules are, and they're making it up as they go along. Credit to Virginia Tech for, quite frankly, a little bit of pettiness as well in there, and some hashtag invent the future in figuring out a way to do this. And I think, look, if that's the dugout and they're doing it in the dugout, I think that's fine. And you know what? If you're on the road and it doesn't work, an air hammer gets the point across. You already hit a home run against these guys. For me, I think the hammer part, like the hammer itself is cool, but I think it's more about the whole team coming out there and celebrating with the guy, and that kind of energy that they bring is, I guess, for the team, maybe a bit more important than the physical hammer. If you need to leave that on the sidelines, not worth an ejection.
It is. And John Sheff put it this way. Like he said, it's that, they're taking away part of Tech's identity by, taking away the hammer and on-field props. Yep.
We will, hopefully this is the solution that makes everybody happy. Doubt it, but we'll see. All right, let's wrap it up. Who is your player of the week or weeks?
I think you got to go Chris Cannizzaro. I mean, he has been. I know you picked him, but
no, that's the right answer.
I mean, if you hit for the cycle and you're hitting over 400 to start the year, and you've hit a few home runs, there's no other solution. Maybe you could argue Drew Hackenberg, who's been great. Christian Martin also could fit that category. He's also hitting 500 since he was penciled in the lineup in the Charleston Sunday game. But Cannizzaro, I mean, man, he's been great. A great guy to talk to too. So nice.
Yes, and just a phenomenal get in the transfer portal out of Bucknell, the grad transfer, stepped in immediately as a starting role. Has a lot of production was kind of put on his shoulders immediately, where Tech kind of needs him to play. Maybe not hitting 470. That's a little ridiculous, but Tech needs him to be a really good bat. He is hitting 470 with 7 extra base hits. He had a cycle with 2 home runs against Bryant. He's also been pretty good in the field, 100% fielding percentage with 2 outfield assists. So he's doing it all. Really, really impressive first few weeks, and seems to be a great team guy that's fitting into the culture. That's one thing. And I've been really impressed with the program over the last few years is when they bring these guys in from the portal, they all seem to be guys that fit the culture, that mesh with the team really well. And I think you're seeing that happen on the field, and you're seeing a more together team that, all the pieces seem to be really fitting together.
Yeah. I mean, Cannizzaro, what he said he lived with Jack Hurley and another teammate. I forget who it is, but the players live together. They're together all the time. So not only are they teammates, they've kind of become good friends too. And I think that's what pushed Tech over the finish line last year was the fact that all these guys were super, super close and they're all friends. And I think you're seeing that kind of sprinkle over to this year's team with all the guys who have come in. And the team chemistry has just been, I think that's truly the key. Like that's been the key to Tech's success over the past few years.
Really quickly, we'll look at the games coming up for the Hokies. They have a 3-game series at home against Charlotte. Really good Charlotte team that started the season off well. That's another opportunity to get a series win against a potential tournament team. Then 2 games in the midweek against UMass Lowell, who will be basically them and Bryant for the American East title. So a little bit tougher midweek games, but 2 games that you would expect the Hokies to play well in. And then March 10th through March 12th, ACC play starts. The Hokies will host Boston College. Boston College is not expected to do too much in the ACC, but still an uptick in competition for the Hokies and a chance to get off on the right foot in the ACC. Real quick thoughts on those?
Yeah, Charlotte's gonna be another NCAA tournament. They made the tournament last year. I don't know what they were projected this year. I haven't done any like research into it yet. I've been a bit busy.
They're good. That's
I mean, it'll be good. It'll be good competition for Tech. UMass Lowell also the return of Fritz Genther.
Yes,
who's there? Shortstop for Tech that played in Blacksburg from 2020 to 2021. And then Boston College. I mean, again, like you said, yeah, they weren't projected to do well in the ACC, but it's an ACC team. It's an uptick in competition, and I'm sure they're itching to get started with the conference schedule too.
Should be fun. Really excited for it. The Hokies off to a great start. Number 11 in the country now. Chris, where can the people find you on Twitter?
They can follow me on Twitter at Chris Hirons, HIRONSVT. And you can find all my recaps and all my feature stories on Tech Sideline.
Great. Well, I'm sure we'll have you back on. We'll be back in a couple of weeks to talk more Hokies baseball. Till then,
yeah, man. Thanks for having me.
Have a good day, everybody.